KamiKatsu, Working for God in a Godless World, is an adaptation of a manga written by Aoi Akashiro and is animated by Studio Palette. The show is centered on the son of a cult leader named Yukito Urabe that is reborn in a world without God or religion after his father accidentally kills him during a ritual. When Yukito first awakens there, he's brought to a remote village by a girl named Allarol who allows him to stay with her and her older sister Siluril. He soon becomes friends with the villagers as he assists them with their mundane work and makes their lives more enjoyable. Just as Yukito starts to adjust to his less than ideal new life, he learns the truth about the residents of the village and the horrible practice mandated by the government known as the end of life system. One day, a villager named Roy returns to the village beaten up and tells him that Allarol and the others are in danger. Yukito rushes to their aid but is powerless against the Empire's knight, Bertrand. Desperate to save his friends, he asks the god of his father's religious group, Mitama, to help them. Mitama appears and uses her powers to defeat the Empire's troops and revive Yukito and his allies. After the situation is resolved, Yukito begins to worry about the safety of the village upon hearing that the Empire is investigating the incident. In order to protect his new home against a possible attack from the Imperial Army, he must rely on Mitama's godly powers. However, due to her lack of followers in the other world, she initially isn't strong enough to defend them. Determined to keep the villagers safe, Yukito creates a religious organization with Mitama as their god in an effort to increase her abilities by helping her gain more followers. KamiKatsu is much better than I expected it to be based on the preview videos released prior to its premiere. This show has such a unique premise and a plot that gets more and more intriguing as the series progresses. It moves at a pretty decent pace and the world is fleshed out fairly well as Yukito learns more about it in preparation for the group's seemingly inevitable battle against the Empire's troops. There were several aspects about the country that piqued my interest early on, such as the end-of-life ritual performed willingly by the residents of the capital. The introduction of the Imperial Army's elite soldiers known as Archons also caught my attention with their technologically advanced design and powers. The mystique surrounding certain facets of the strange land Yukito finds himself in helps to keep things engaging early on. One aspect of this anime that really surprised me was the story. The narrative is pretty solid so far, and there is actually a great plot twist that you'll likely not see coming. Akashiro did an excellent job establishing Loki and the other Archons as villains as well as setting the stage for an even bigger conflict down the line. This show explores the concept of God and free will while also questioning whether we make our own deities. Anyway, the best parts of KamiKatsu isn't the story or its mysterious world, but its quirky characters and often ridiculous comedic scenes. I love how the author wrote the protagonist as a lowly, deceitful guy who's willing to trick those around him in order to achieve his goal. He's unapologetically manipulative and underhanded in his efforts to proselytize the villagers in order to make Mitama stronger. It was fun watching him use all the knowledge he's gained from his time inside of his father's cult to convince people to join his religious group. Another character I really like was Mitama, who functions as a decent foil to Yukito. Unlike him, she thinks highly of herself given that she's a god with the capacity to perform miraculous feats, but unfortunately tends to be hasty and is kinda stupid. Mitama adores Yukito and typically acts out of their own interests rather than for anyone else in the group. There are some amusing scenes where Yukito exploits her powers to the point of exhaustion for the sake of recruiting more members into their organization. Mitama's scenes with Roy, the perverted guy that instantly becomes infatuated with her, were very funny too. Throughout the series, there are moments in which he behaves inappropriately towards some of the girls in the village. Of course, his creepy behavior is played up for laughs, with the reactions from other characters being quite humorous. Some of Roy's scenes can get pretty ridiculous and wild, such as one where he's fantasizing about Mitama. KamiKatsu has a bunch of absurd and crazy moments that were very entertaining. Some of these scenes are quite shocking and have left me wondering how much crazier the manga is at certain parts. While I thought the humor present in some of these sequences worked fairly well, I could totally see why it wouldn't for others. Some people will likely be turned off by some of the show's mature content, especially the more sexual stuff. At the very least, these particular scenes are sure to leave some kind of impression on you. Of course, Akishiro doesn't solely rely on shock value for laughs and has written some solid comedic scenes. In the beginning, the author plays with the audience's expectations by pretending to build up to something cool or serious, only for something comical to happen. The weakest aspect of this anime is without a doubt its presentation. The production value of this series is average at best. That said, I think Studio Palette has done an alright job considering that this is only their second time fully producing their own series. Prior to this anime, the most notable thing they worked on was The World's Finest Assassin, which they co-produced with Silverlink. Anyway, the 2D animation is serviceable, and the action sequences are mostly forgettable, apart from Itama's fight against an Archon named Atar. The CG used for the dangerous creatures referred to as strange beasts is some of the worst I've seen in quite a while. The studio utilizes CG for many things, like Alaral's pet Choo Choo or Atar's transformation, and it sticks out like a sore thumb. I was taken aback by how terrible the quality of the 3D was when I first watched the premiere. I get the feeling that the animators didn't have much to work with in terms of resources, given the fact that they simply reused upcoming scenes from an episode for the opening sequence. There were a couple scenes where the visuals looked so awful that I couldn't help but laugh at it. Aside from those moments and the bad CG, the video game pixel art style that Studio Palette occasionally switches to looked decent and adds a bit of charm to the show. As it stands, KamiKatsu, Working for God in a Godless World, is an enjoyable but noticeably flawed isekai series with an engrossing plot and an interesting world. While its characters aren't the deepest, they're certainly memorable and fun. This anime really shines during its unhinged comedic moments, which, as I stated before, definitely won't appeal to everyone. I'm not exaggerating when I say that things get crazy in this anime. I think if you like shows such as Immoral Guild, Interspecies Reviewers, or Harem in the Labyrinth, then you'll likely enjoy this. Anyway, if you've seen this series, let me know what you thought about it in the comment section below, and as always, thanks for watching.